Mhm. Yes, Dr. Zaiden Patel, are you here?
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good afternoon.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Did I miss anything?
وعليكم
Did
السلام.
you start?
Yes, Dr. Patel, can you hear?
Yes, please.
Yes. So, good afternoon, everyone. Today we will have this fourth session of CTL, and today Dr. Zaiden Patel will be presenting to us this topic called developing supplementary materials for teaching. I will be the moderator for this session, and I will first introduce Dr. Zaiden Patel, and then he will begin his presentation. After the presentation finish, we will have some time for question and answers. So yes, without further ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Zaiden Patel. Dr. Patel is the president of English Language Teacher Association of India, Pune chapter, and he has been teaching English language as a literature at several colleges, universities across India and outside of India for more than 47 years. He did his MA, MPhil, and PhD from Pune University, and was also awarded British Council Scholarship in 1990, and he did a diploma in MA in TOSEL from University of Edinburgh, UK. His research interest includes English language teaching, pragmatic stylist, teaching language through literature, teaching English to multilingual and multicultural groups, to speakers of other languages, and he used supporting materials to teach English that increases employability skills, motivation to the students, and classroom management. Dr. Patel, to his credit, has more than 20 textbooks, 8 research books, and 80 research articles published in various international and national journals. He has guided more than 10 MPhil and 24 PhD scholars, and has evaluated more than 50 PhD theses submitted to India and to different foreign universities. And he has delivered 32 invited keynote addresses and 78 plenary talks at various international conferences that include in Britain, Canada, Dubai, Sri Lanka, Taiwan, Thailand, Turkey, virtually almost every part of the world. And in addition to his contributions, he also have moderated several panels for seminars and conferences in different places. Professor Patel has been a senior advisor to 20 international journals, such as Asia ESL Journal, and has received a lifetime membership award from the English Scholars Beyond Borders for his International Group of Scholars Outstanding Contribution Award from Rajasthan Association for Studies in English, Udaipur, and he has a lot of awards under his belt. So yes, this is Dr. Zaiden Patel, and without further ado, all the stages for Dr. Zaiden Patel to present his work.
Thank you, my dear friend, and thank you, Khalid and Vijay Singh Thakur, for this wonderful opportunity. It's a great pleasure for me, and it's a matter of pride and privilege for me to be with you a second time this year, within the span of a few months. Now, I'd like to begin my talk with something that happened about half a century ago. And this happened in Britain. I'm sure everyone has heard of the famous newspaper called The Observer. The Observer made an announcement It happened in mid 60s, the last century, about 50 years ago. So the Observer made an announcement. What was the announcement about? The announcement was about a competition. And what was the theme of the competition? The theme of the competition was the school I would like. Now, this particular competition was meant only for school-going children, boys and girls, across Britain, across the United Kingdom. And these school-going children were requested to express their views, their opinions, their ideas of their ideal school. Now, the message was very loud and clear. At the end of the competition, the government of the United Kingdom and the education institutions involved in this particular competition, including the newspaper, The Observer. So all these agencies gathered together and they went through the views and opinions expressed by these school-going children in Britain. And these children had expressed their opinions and ideas and views about their ideal school in the form of short paragraphs or lengthy essays or poems or collages and paintings and so on and so forth. What was the message that the children had for educators, for teachers, for administrators, for the different stakeholders in the field of education? The message was this: educators, please educate our teachers. There is a dire need for our teachers to be trained because our teachers, the words were different, but I'm just distilling the essence of the message that was conveyed by the school-going children in Britain. They didn't use the exact words that I'm using, but I'm capturing the essence of what they had expressed. So educators, educate our teachers. They don't know what they teach. They don't know why they teach. They don't know how much they should be teaching at one time. And, a whole gamut of questions were raised by these children. And they said, our lessons are very formal. We want our lessons to be less like lessons and more like family discussions, family dialogues, family chats. So I'm explaining this background because we're going to talk about a very significant, very important topic. And the topic, as our friend has already announced, is developing support or supplementary teaching learning materials. It's a very important area. Now, as was pointed out by our friend, I've been teaching English language, literature, and linguistics for the last 47 years or so. And I have come to certain bleak, certain dark conclusions, and my conclusions may not be palatable to many teachers across the world. Now, what is my conclusion? Having taught English language, literature, and linguistics for a long time, for 47 years, I've drawn this conclusion. Most of us, most teachers are tormentors. Teachers, in fact, are expected to be mentors. Teachers are not expected to be tormentors. But on the basis of my observation of teaching and learning scenarios in India and abroad, I can safely say that most teachers, many teachers, if you want to take it with a pinch of salt, many teachers are tormentors, and the taught, the learners, the pupils are the tormented. And the tormentor, the teacher, has two tools of torture in their hands. And these two tools are the text and the test. And many teachers use these two tools to torture their learners. They use the text to torture, to torment the learners. They use the testing system, the evaluation, the assessment, and all that to torment, to torture their learners, their students. Right. And that's exactly why Paulo Freire and similar-minded thinkers are critical of the nature of textbooks. They're not very happy with the textbooks that are currently being used or that were used in those days, a few decades ago, in different parts of the world. So we need to do something about the teaching materials. We need to do something about the textbooks. Now, when we talk about teaching, the teaching of languages in particular, any language for that matter, in our case, the language is English. when we talk about the teaching of English, we need to consider certain factors. And these factors are the teacher, the text, the techniques, the taught or the student, the pupil, the learner, and the test. Now, today we are going to focus on text. We're not going to focus mainly on teacher and technique and taught or the learner and test. We're going to focus our attention on the textbook because we're going to talk about supplementing the textbook and so on. As all of us know, there are two main types of teachers. Number one, teachers who are text-free teachers. And number two, text-bound teachers. Teachers who are bound by the two covers, or bound between the two covers of the textbooks. Right. Now, let me talk very briefly about these two types of teachers. Number one is text-bound teachers. Now, these teachers do not want to deviate from the textbook. For them, the textbook is a holy book, is a scripture, right? The textbook is, they follow the textbook very religiously, faithfully, very obediently, and they do not adapt it, they do not alter it, they do not add to it, they do not modify it, because they think that they are very comfortable with the textbook. They're very comfortable. They don't have to take risks. The moment you start talking about creating and designing supplementary or support materials, risk is involved. Some kind of risk is involved, right? So the first type of teachers is the text-bound teachers, and they follow the textbook. They don't even change the order of the units given in the textbook. They don't change the order of the exercises and activities and tasks given in the textbook. They follow the textbook like a holy book, like a religious book, from the first page to the last page. So they're text-bound. They do not think of supplementing it. They do not think of creating, designing supplementary activities, exercises, and tasks. And the second group of teachers is the teachers who are text-free teachers. Now, these teachers use the textbook. Both groups of teachers use the textbook. But the difference between the first group of text-bound teachers and the second group of text-free teachers is that the second group of text-free teachers, or the second group of teachers, tries to devise or design supplementary, additional, extra activities in order to inject liveliness into their lessons, in order to inject interest in the lesson. Now, the textbook is very important. There is no doubt about that, because the textbook gives the teacher everything in ready-made format. The units, the exercises, the activities, and the tasks are selected and graded. And the textbook lends some focus, some direction to the teachers, for the teachers. The teachers do not feel any risks. The teachers are comfortable. The learners are comfortable. Now, why do we need supplementary teaching materials, learning materials? We want to inject interest into our lessons, because usually our lessons are monotonous, boring, tedious. Now, we want to enliven the lessons. We want to inject interest. We want to inject liveliness. We want to fill in the gaps that we find in the textbook. We want to present and practice and prove certain things. For example, we want to present vocabulary, we want to present grammatical structures, we want to practice these vocabulary items and structural items, and we want to prove at the end of the year, we want to test, prove in the sense, we want to test how much has been learned by the learners and how much of it has not been learned by them. So why do we need supplementary materials? We want to inject interest into our boring, monotonous lessons. We want to inject liveliness. We want to motivate our learners. We want to fill up the gaps that we find in the textbook. We want to improvise the teaching learning materials, and we want to use supplementary materials to present items, to practice them, and to test them, to prove them. And we want to satisfy auditory, visual, kinesthetic learners, because the textbook is mainly meant for auditory purposes. The teacher explains the units, the texts, the poems, the one-act plays, the essays, the stories, and the teacher gives rubrics, instructions in the classroom for the learners to implement them. So the textbook is mainly auditory. But when a teacher designs or creates supplementary support teaching materials, he or she can bring in variety. For example, he or she can create certain materials for visual learners, certain materials for auditory learners, certain materials for kinesthetic learners, and so on and so forth. So we use supplementary materials because we want to satisfy interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, mathematical intelligence, musical intelligence, linguistic intelligence, naturalist intelligence, and so on and so forth. So we're going to talk about these different types of intelligences very soon, very briefly. Now, we know that every day we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what do we usually have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? We usually have vegetables and fruits and yogurt, excuse me. We usually have vegetables and meat or eggs and milk or yogurt and some fruit or some fruits. But the problem is not everything that we consume, not everything that we eat is absorbed in the system, in the digestive system. And that's why we need supplements, dietary supplements like vitamins and minerals. So these, our regular diet, breakfast, lunch, and dinner is like a regular textbook. And vitamins, vitamin A, B, C, D, and minerals, these are supplementary teaching materials. Now, support materials can be transferred, like for example, a songwriter or a lyricist does not produce a lyric or a song for teaching purposes. The songwriter, the lyricist, produces the lyric or the song only to express her or his feelings. So we can transfer a song. A song is not primarily meant for teaching, but we can transfer it from that particular music domain to the domain of pedagogy. So supplementary materials can be transferred, they can be designed by the respective teacher, they can be borrowed from other people, or they can be bought. There are certain educational shops where we can go and we can buy at least some supplementary teaching learning materials. Or teaching learning materials can be selected, can be chosen from various sources like newspapers and so on and so forth. Now, I usually think of supplementation in terms of a dichotomy. For example, the first type is internal supplementation. What do I mean by internal supplementation? What I mean by internal supplementation is this. We have a textbook. The textbook has units. The textbook has poems, essays, short stories, one-act plays. The textbook has activities, exercises, and tasks on vocabulary, grammar, listening, speaking, reading, writing, and so on and so forth. But they are not enough for some teachers. And some teachers are not happy with all the different units, all the different exercises given in the textbook. So such teachers would like to supplement. So we call it internal supplementation because we do not go beyond the textbook. We use the already included texts, and the texts may be poetic texts, prosaic texts, and so on and so forth. The texts are already given in the textbook. We create extra exercises and activities and tasks. For example, let me give you an example. All of us know the poem Daffodils. Let me recite the poem very quickly, and then I'll demonstrate how we can use this particular poem, which is already there in many textbooks across the world, and how we can supplement the exercises that are already there. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Okay, so this is Daffodils by William Wordsworth, and it is already there. For example, suppose this poem is already there, included in the textbook, and certain exercises have been created by the committee, textbook writing committee or materials production committee. And these exercises cover areas like vocabulary, grammar, listening comprehension, speaking, reading, writing, etc., etc. But some teachers find these exercises improper, either improper or inadequate, and they want to create or design their own additional extra material exercises. Now, the additional material that I have produced on this poem is in the form of riddles. Right. Now, I'll read a few riddles. Listening comprehension questions can be administered in the classroom. Speaking activities can be carried out in the classroom. Reading activities can be carried out in the classroom. But some interesting, motivating activities can be administered, and these activities can be designed and created by the respective teacher. Now, we heard the poem. I recited the poem very quickly. Now, what we can do is we can list certain nouns, pick up certain nouns from the poem, like cloud and vales and hills and lake, trees and breeze. These are items or nouns from the first stanza. Stars, Milky Way, bay, dance. This is the second stanza. And the third stanza has a noun called waves. And the last stanza has nouns like eye, solitude, and heart. Now, as a teacher, I create riddles on these words, or these words are answers to those riddles. I can design these riddles, and I can ask the learners to identify the noun that the particular riddle refers to. Alternatively, I can give them the words that cloud, vales, hills, lake, trees, breeze, etc., etc., and I can ask them to create or design riddles. Now, I'll just read out a few riddles. I'm quiet and docile in winter, but furious and loud in summer. Who am I? And the answer that we expect is cloud. Please remember, the answers are given in the poem, and the answers are available in the form of nouns. And most of these nouns refer to natural phenomena. And the teacher has created, like I have created these riddles, and I don't think it will be a problem for the learners answering the riddles or solving the riddles. I'm quiet and docile in winter, but furious and loud in summer. Who am I? Cloud. The sun is my father, the ocean is my mother, and showers are my children. Who am I? Cloud again. I am not a bay, but very similar and quite small. Who am I? Lake. I am not a sea or an ocean, but very similar and quite small. Who am I? Bay. Now, these words, cloud and lake and bay, are already there. So they need to identify, they need to understand the focal point of the riddle and identify the noun that is already there in the poem. Stars here and stars there, stars in front and stars behind. Who am I? Milky Way. You can spell me from left to right or right to left, but you will get only me. And the answer is I, E-Y-E, and the word is already there in the poem, right? You can spell me from left to right or right to left, but you will get only me, and the answer is I. I have a lash, L-A-S-H, lash, but I don't beat others. I beat myself a few times every minute. Who am I? I, because eyes have lashes, eyelashes. I have a ball, but I cannot play with it. Who am I? I, E-Y-E, because we talk about eyeball and all that. My rise is like a little hill, my fall is like a little valley. Who am I? Wave, because we talk about crest and fall. Oceans have us, heat has us, sound and light have us, even sympathy has us. Who are we, or who am I? Wave, because oceans have waves, heat. We also talk about heat wave, we talk about sound wave, talk about light wave, and we talk about sympathy wave, right? Now, this was one example, and this was an example of internal supplementation. Now, why am I calling this internal supplementation? I said that this poem is usually found in many school and college textbooks. So the text is already there, and there are a few exercises, framed activities and tasks based on this particular poem. So I want to add some more interesting, motivating tasks and activities. And these are added to the already available text. The text is already available in the textbook. That's why it is internal supplementation. The second type is external supplementation. When we talk about external supplementation, what I mean is we borrow or we create a passage, a poem, a nursery rhyme, we can base certain tasks and activities. So the text is from outside. The activities and tasks are also from outside. That is why we call it external supplementation. Now, let me give you some examples. Now, this is a cartoon. There was a very famous journalistic cartoonist in India. He used to live in Pune, in the same city in which I live. His name was R.K. Lakshman. And every morning in the Times of India edition, the cartoon would appear on the very first page, on the front page. And the cartoon would be, the cartoon would have its focus on some political personality or some event, something, some folly of the society, some foible of the society. So here is one. Once upon a time, there was a lady dancer. Now, she was going to give a charity dance performance. She was going to give a dance performance for charity purposes. So she found a painter, and she said to the painter, "Mr. Painter, here are two words, charity, show. I want you to write these two words on a piece of cloth on a banner and put it up on the stage in the theater, because this evening I'm going to perform give a dance performance for charity purposes." And the two words that the lady dancer gave the painter, the artist, were charity show. Now, many times our learners go wrong in the area of word order. For example, even in India, people don't understand the difference between people concerned and concerned people, right? People concerned means people who are involved in particular domain, and concerned people means people who are worried, right? The concerned parents visited the school concerned. The concerned parents means parents who are worried or who were worried. The concerned parents visited the school concerned, right? So there is a difference between concerned parents and school concerned, right? So some students sometimes go wrong in this area, and we can use this external supplementation to add some flavor, some interest, some liveliness to our lesson. Now, what happens in the cartoon is the painter reverses the word order. Instead of writing the two words in this order, charity show, he writes them in the reverse order, show charity. When the lady dancer appears on the stage, she looks at the banner, the piece of cloth with the two words written in a wrong order, reverse order. Now, charity show, we can ask our learners, right? When our class is over and we are left with 10 minutes, right? And suppose there is an exercise on adjectives, attributive, predicative, and so on and so forth. We can bring in this cartoon as a supplement, and we can make our class, grammar class, which is usually said to be a boring class, usually, not all the time, and not in the case of all the teachers, because there are quite a few teachers who try to make their grammar lessons interesting. And fortunately, I can do that like those teachers. So the teacher can ask some little questions to the learners in the classroom. Okay, the lady dancer wanted the painter to write the words in this order, charity show, but the painter made a mistake, and it was a beautiful mistake, a very meaningful mistake. And he wrote the words in this order, show charity. Now, what is the function of the word charity in charity show? And I'm sure some student, some learner will give you the answer. He or she can say, sir or madam, charity in the phrase charity show functions as an adjective. And how about show? Show can be a verb or can be a noun, but in this case, show is a noun. Charity is an adjective and show is a noun. Good. Now, what happens in the reversed word order? You can ask them. Is charity in show charity an adjective or a noun? And I'm sure the learner will say, in show charity, charity is a noun and show is a verb. In the first case, show was a noun. In the second case, show is a verb. In the first case, charity was an adjective. In the second case, charity is a noun. Now, do you think, you can ask, the teacher can ask the learners this question. Do you think the lady is angry with the painter because an adjective has become a noun and a noun has become a verb? No, not at all. She is not a grammar teacher and she is not a grammarian. Let's go to the next level. The first level is the level of words, right? Adjective followed by noun and verb followed by noun. That is lexical level, word level, vocabulary level. Okay. Now the phrase level, charity show is a noun phrase. It's a phrase, it's not a sentence. And show charity, you can ask your students, is charity show a phrase or a sentence? And I'm sure somebody in the class will say, it's a phrase, it's a noun phrase. And how about show charity? And I'm sure some student will say, it's a sentence. And what kind of sentence is it? It's an imperative sentence. Okay, so charity show, charity is an adjective, show is a noun. Show charity, show is a verb, charity is a noun, level 1. Level 2, charity show is a phrase, show charity is an imperative sentence. Level number 3, charity show has an informative function. Charity show, the expression charity show implies that, or the expression charity show gives us information that this particular dancer is going to give a dancing performance for charity purposes. So charity show has informative function. How about show charity? It has a directive function, right? And the fourth level is the level of pragmatics. Why do you think, the teacher asks the learners, that the lady dancer is angry? And I'm sure some learner will say, sir or madam, charity show has positive meaning. It means that the lady is very generous and she is giving a dance performance without any honorarium or without any fees, without any tickets. But show charity has a negative meaning. It implies that the dancer is not a seasoned, is not an excellent, is not a world-class dancer. She is a very ordinary dancer, and therefore it's an appeal to the audience, to the spectators, to the listeners, to bear with the committee members, right? The people who are responsible for arranging this show. So this particular cartoon can be used to explain the distinction between people concerned and concerned people. We can give examples like progress report, report progress. Training workshop, workshop training. People concerned, concerned people. Advanced troops, troops advanced. Income tax, tax income. School day, day school. Process description, description process, and so on. So this can be done with the help of a cartoon. Now, we can also use certain little stories. For example, here is one, and it's a brainstorm. It requires, it requires the learner to brainstorm, to think critically, to think creatively. So it's a very integrated kind of activity. There is a farmer, and the farmer has three things. He has a piece of cabbage, he has a goat, and he has a wolf. Now he wants to cross the river, but his boat is too small to carry all the three things, even two things. He can carry only the cabbage or the goat or the wolf. He cannot carry the cabbage and the wolf, the cabbage and the goat, or the goat and the wolf. He can carry only one thing. Now, how will he carry these things? He doesn't have a piece of rope. Now, a goat is a herbivorous animal. A goat eats vegetables, herbs, plants, and a wolf is a carnivorous animal, eats meat, right? So we cannot leave the goat and the wolf together, right? We cannot leave the goat and the cabbage together, right? The goat may eat the cabbage and the wolf may eat the goat. Now, we can exploit or we can use this particular brainstorming, problem solving, information gap activity to teach or to present or to practice conditional clauses. For example, there is zero conditional, simple present followed by simple present. For example, if the farmer carries the goat and the wolf together, leaving the cabbage here, if the farmer carries the cabbage and leaves the goat and the wolf on this bank of the river, the wolf eats the goat. If the farmer carries the wolf and goes to the other bank of the river and leaves the cabbage and the goat on this side of the river, the goat eats the cabbage. This is simple present followed by simple present. Now, we generally use this zero conditional in which both the clauses are simple present clauses. We use this generally for expressing universal truths, right? Like 2 + 2 make 4, right? Something like that. But in this case also we can use this present, simple present followed by simple present. This is zero conditional. Then type 1 conditional, simple present followed by simple future. If he carries the cabbage to the other side of the river and leaves the goat and the wolf on this side of the river, the wolf will eat the goat. This is for type 1 conditional, simple present followed by simple future. Then type 2 conditional is simple past followed by simple past. If he carried the cabbage and left the goat and the wolf on this side of the river, the wolf would eat the goat. And type 3 conditional is past perfect followed by past perfect. If he had carried the cabbage alone, and if he had left the goat and the wolf on this side of the river, the wolf would have eaten the goat. Now we can explain the meanings, the differences or distinctions between zero conditional, type 1 conditional, type 2 conditional, type 3 conditional, all that can be done in the classroom in simple English. So this kind of brainstorming activity can also be administered in a classroom. And we are talking about supplementation. We are supplementing, we are complementing to the text. We are supplementing the text, adding to the text. Right. Now I have one more cartoon. I'm sorry, I usually don't use any slides or any PowerPoints, and that's probably why sometimes people find it difficult to understand things, but I'll try to make things as easy as possible. The cartoon is, an interview is in progress, and it's an interview for the post of a teacher of English. The interviewers are sitting inside the hall, and they invite one of the applicants, one of the candidates into the hall. And one of the interviewers says to the candidate, to the applicant, please draw a chair and sit down and be comfortable. Now, this is a cartoon. In a cartoon, there is always some exaggeration, some hyperbole. A cartoon is hyperbolic, exaggerated, because if it was not exaggerated, it wouldn't make any point, memorable and mnemonic, right? So please draw a chair and be comfortable. But this gentleman, this applicant, knows only one meaning of the word draw. Now we can use this cartoon to teach vocabulary, right? That a word or dictionary skills for that matter. And we can demonstrate to our learners that a word can have several meanings or several shades of meanings in several different contexts, right? We can develop this dictionary skill using supplementary materials. Draw a picture. This is what, draw a chair and sit down. So he picks up a piece of chalk and draws a picture of a chair on the floor and sits on that picture. It's a funny kind of thing, right? It's rather ridiculous, but it's a kind of exaggerated presentation. So the candidate draws a picture of a chair and sits on it on the floor. He knows only one meaning. So draw means to draw a picture. But draw has many other meanings. Draw somebody's attention to something, draw something in a particular direction or direction, draw a number or a card without first seeing it in a draw, lucky draw, for example, draw a salary, draw a breath, draw blood, and so on. So we can use a cartoon of this kind, not only cartoon, we can use any material, anecdote, spoonerism, malapropism, folk tale, anything that is not there in the or a joke, decent joke. All these things, all these resources can be used to supplement whatever is available in the form of the textbook that we have. Now, I have requested Professor Khalid to get in touch with the participants and request them to listen to the song I Am Alive by Celine Dion, the famous singer who sang the songs for the movie The Titanic. I hope the participants have already heard or listened to this song. All right. Now, what happens in the, you can ask them to listen to the song once, twice, and then ask them little questions. Do you notice any prominent, any dominant grammar pattern in the song? And I'm sure when they listen to your recitation of the song, they will notice that there is a pattern. A particular pattern has been repeated in the song. For example, when you call on me, I get wings to fly. When I hear you breathe, I get wings to fly. When I hear you breathe, I feel that I am alive. When you look at me, I can touch the sky. When you look at me, I know that I am alive. When you bless the day, I just drift away. When you reach for me, I get wings to fly. Now, we can ask them, question number one. First, the teacher allows them to listen to the song once or twice because the learners may not be familiar with American accent because the singer is an American, right? And that's why she pronounces the word here as hear, right? And so on. So they listen to the song once, twice, three times, and then the teacher asks them little questions. Do you notice any prominent grammatical pattern here? Yes, yes, ma'am. What is that pattern? The pattern is when clause. When you do this, when you do that, when you do that, when you do that, this is what happens, that is what happens, that is what happens. Okay, good. Now, can you divide the line into two parts? Like when you call on me, I get wings to fly. Yes. What are those two parts? When you call on me is part one, I get wings to fly is part two. Which of these two parts can stand alone independently, meaningfully? Which of these two parts has complete meaning? The second part, I get wings to fly. I feel that I am alive. I can touch the sky. I know that I am alive. I just drift away. All my worries die. All these are independent clauses. They are complete sentences, right? And the first part, when you call on me, when I hear you breathe, when I hear you, when you look at me, when you bless the day, when you reach for me, can these first parts of these lines stand independently, meaningfully? Do they have their own independent, autonomous meaning? No, they depend on the second part. So the second part is independent, the first part is dependent, right? Then the teacher can say, can you swap these two parts, exchange their positions? Like, for example, when you reach for me, I get wings to fly. Can you say, I get wings to fly when you reach for me? All my worries die when you bless the day. I just drift away when you bless the day. I know that I'm alive when you look at me. I can touch the sky when you look at me. Can we reverse the clause order? Yes, we can. And does it result into any significant change in the meaning? No, it doesn't. The meaning is more or less the same. It's just a slight shift of focus. So a song, a movie song can be supplementary teaching material. A journalistic cartoon can be supplementary teaching material. And these types are external supplementation types. And the tasks, the riddles based on daffodils were created by me, and they belong to internal supplementation type because the text is already there. Okay. So we can go on. We can even ask them to, for example, questions on rhyme scheme: fly, sky, die. Rhyming words, identify the rhyming. Of course, we need to decide on. We need to fix the learner level. Is it primary school, secondary school, or is it college level? Right? What kind of activities can be suitable for school level? And so on. All these are important considerations that we need to keep in mind. So we can also have a little exercise on rhyming words: fly, sky, die, day, away, fire, and higher. All these words are there in the song. Then we can ask them questions like little difficult questions like which part is said with rising intonation, rising tone. For example, the subordinate clause or the dependent clause is usually articulated with rising tone. For example, when I hear you read, I get wings to fly. On the first part, there is a rise. On the second part, there is a fall. This is the intonation pattern. We can ask them a question on this. What does rising tone imply? What does it imply? It implies that that there is something more coming after this part, right? The rising tone arouses our curiosity that something more is coming after this, right? Now we can also ask them questions on which things are possible and which things are realistic and which things are metaphorically true, factually true and metaphorically true. For example, I get wings to fly. Does the singer really get wings, literal wings? No, she doesn't. So it's metaphorically true, not factually true, right? I can touch the sky. I can touch the sky. When you look at me, I can touch the sky. Can the singer really touch the sky? No, she cannot. She is a human being. How can she touch the sky? Then is it untrue? No, it is not untrue. If it is true, then it is not factually true. It is metaphorically true, right? So we can ask them question on that question of that type as well. Now, I requested Professor Khalid to request the participants to read the poem Daffodils at home before coming to the session, and to watch the animation by Walt Disney, and the animation is titled Paper Man. And I also requested them to listen to the song I'm Alive. I hope the participants have done this. If they have done this, they will find these things easy to understand. So Paper Man is an animation. There are no words, there is no language used in the animation. Only characters are there, events are there, incidents are there. And there is an office, there is a railway platform, there is a gentleman, there is a woman, right? We can use this, we can ask them to watch this animation titled Paper Man at a stretch. It's about 8 minutes, so 7 to 8 minutes. And then we play it shot by shot. In the very first shot, we see a man standing on a railway platform, and we can ask our learners, okay, if there are 50 learners, 50 learners can come up with 50 different sentences. For example, the first learner can say, in this animation, I see a man. Depending on the level, you can be happy with short and simple sentences, or you can ask your learners to use compound, complex sentences, depending on the level, of course. And of course, the objective of teaching English and the objective of using this paperman, this animation. So the first learner says, I see a man in this animation. And the second person has to continue in a logical fashion, not in a hopping manner. You know, the story should result into a story, chronological story, psychological story, or logical story, or all three put together. So we can use this as a collaborative spoken text to produce a collaborative. The first learner says one sentence, and the second learner, keeping in view what the first learner has already said, can produce a second sentence, and keeping in view what the first and the second learners have said about the man, the third learner has to say something additional, right? I see a man in this animation. He is standing on a railway platform. I think he's waiting for his train to arrive. I suppose he's going to work, going to office, like this, right? Now, describing is a very important skill. All of us are required to describe, and we are required to describe people, places, events, incidents, objects, and so on. And when we describe a place or a person or an object or an event or an incident, we need naming words. Like, for example, when they watch this animation, they can think of words like man, woman, platform, train, office, folder, papers, file, because that is what they see in the animation. So we need naming words, nouns. We need describing words like tall. The man is tall but lanky. The man is handsome and tall but lanky. The woman is beautiful, right? She has big eyes, and so on. So we need naming words, we need describing words, we need doing words. The man has been waiting. He is standing on a railway platform, right? He is holding a file in his hand, and so on. So this animation can be a supplementary teaching, material, and we can design a variety of tasks, a variety of activities on this, right? Now, some time ago, I said that we can use supplementary materials to satisfy the needs of different types of learners, like kinesthetic learners, or auditory learner, kinesthetic learner, visual learner. Or we can also use supplementary materials to satisfy different types of intelligence. Like somebody is good at music, somebody is good at mathematics, somebody is good at languages, and the teacher can choose or design or borrow or buy activities, right? To satisfy all these different types of intelligences. Now here is one which is logical intelligence, right? While driving his son to work, Akbar had a terrible accident. While driving his son to work, Akbar had a terrible accident. He was killed on the spot. His son was badly injured and was rushed to hospital. As he was being put on the operating table, the surgeon saw his face and cried out, "Oh my God, it's my son." Now we know that Akbar's father was dead, right? Akbar was dead. While driving his son to work, Akbar had a terrible accident. He was killed on the spot. Now, why does this surgeon say, "But, oh my God, it's my son"? Now, because we are born and brought up and conditioned in patriarchal societies, right? Even though we say that our societies are matriarchal, the fact is that most societies in the world are patriarchal societies. So because we are born and brought up and educated or schooled and conditioned in patriarchal settings, we immediately jump to conclusions. Oh my God, Akbar, the father was dead. How can he say, oh my God, it's my son? Because we tend to associate a surgeon with a male, not with a female. Now, you can a teacher can administer this puzzle in the classroom, and I'm sure most learners will go wrong here because they will associate the word surgeon with a male, and they'll not be able to answer the question because they know that Akbar, the father, is dead, right? And they cannot immediately think of the surgeon as a woman or a woman as a surgeon, right? So the answer is, now, what's the explanation you can ask? You can give this task and then you say, what's the explanation? Can we explain this? And then the explanation follows, right? So one very important aim of using teaching learning materials is to inculcate values. Like gender bias is not a good idea, it's not a good thing. Because whether a person is a male or a female, we're all equals. Just as Hindus and Muslims and Christians and Jews and Buddhists and Jains and Sikhs are all equal. We are children of the same father. The names are different. The names are Allah, Ram, right? Or Jesus, or Guru Nanak, and so on and so forth. The names are different, but we are children of the same father. Similarly, it's the responsibility, moral responsibility of the teacher, especially of that language, teacher of a language, to inculcate gender equality. So we can administer this activity for that particular purpose. Now, here is a mathematical one, right? Because some time ago I referred to the different types of intelligence: logical, mathematical, musical, linguistic, intrapersonal, interpersonal, naturalist, and so on. Now, 3 girls spent a night in a hotel. How many girls? 3 girls. 1, 2, 3. 3 girls spent a night in a hotel, and before leaving in the morning, they asked for the bill, which amounted to 30 Omani riyals, right? There were 3 girls, and they stayed in a hotel for 1 night. And the next morning, before they left, they asked for the bill, and the receptionist said that the bill was 30 Omani riyals. Each girl contributed 10 riyals. A few minutes later, now the girls are already left. A few minutes later, the manager realized he had made a mistake, and he should have asked for only 25 riyals. So he had asked for 5 riyals more. So it was his mistake. And he was now repenting. So he sent the hotel boy to them with 5 riyals. The boy didn't see how he could possibly divide 5 riyals between 3 people, because there were 3 girls and there were 5 riyals. The hotel manager had asked the hotel boy to return 5 riyals to the girls, but there were only 3 girls. So he couldn't have divided 5 riyals into 3. So he kept 2 riyals into his pocket, and he gave 1 riyal to each of those 3 girls. He returned 1 riyal to each one of those 3 girls. So originally, the manager had taken 30 Omani riyals. He realized that he had charged more. He returned 5 riyals, but the boy thought that it was impossible for him to divide 5 riyals into 3, because there were 3 girls. So he gave them 3. He returned 3 riyals to the 3 girls, 1 riyal each, and he kept 2 into his pocket. So, right, the boy didn't see how he could possibly divide 5 riyals between 3 people. So he kept 2 riyals for himself and gave 1 riyal to each of these 3 girls. So each girl paid 10 minus 1. Initially, each girl had paid 10 Omani riyals. And now the boy returned 1 riyal to each of these girls. So, so each girl paid 10 minus 1 equal to 9 riyals, right, for 1 night. Altogether, they paid 9 multiplied by 3 equal to 27 riyals. As for the hotel boy, he had 2 riyals in his pocket. So 27 and 2, 27 plus 2, 29. That's only 29 reals. Where did the missing real go? Now, this is a challenge. This is going to be easy for those people who have mathematical intelligence, right? Now, there are two routes here. The girls gave the manager 30 reals. The boy returned 3 reals to the 3 girls. So 30 minus 3, 27. And the boy had already kept 2 reals into his pocket. 27 plus 2, 29. But the girls had given 30. Where is 1 real? Where is it? Where has it gone? This is one route. The other route is the girls had paid 30 reals and the boy had 5 reals. He kept 2 for himself and gave the girls 3 reals. So 25 plus 30 minus 5, 25. 25 plus 2 in his pocket and 3 with the girls, 30. If you follow the first route, you don't get the answer because you are left with only 29 reals. If you follow the second route, you get the answer. So this is an activity for satisfying mathematically intelligent people. Sometimes when we are left with 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we can give them little activities, puzzles. Now, a 7-letter word, this activity, I call this activity a 7-letter word. Maybe you know this activity. What word in the English language is the following? The first 2 letters signify a male. The first 3 letters signify a female. The first 4 letters signify a great man. The entire word signifies a great woman, right? If I ask you to answer, will you be able to answer this question now? Can you do that now? Or shall I give you the answers? Khalid? Khalid? Hello? Hello?
Yes, Dr. Patel, we can hear.
Yeah, so you want me to give the answer or you want the participants to answer this? It's a very simple one. The first 2 letters signify a male. The first 3 letters signify a female. The first 4 letters signify a great man. The entire word signifies a great woman. Which word, which 7-letter word is this? The first 2 letters signify a male, he. The first 3 letters signify a female, her. The first 4 letters signify a great man, hero. The entire word signifies a great woman, heroine. So such little activities can sometimes be used to breathe fresh air into the stale, antiseptic, monotonous, tedious, boring language teaching class. Now, here is one more, again a mathematical one. 1 rabbit saw 9 elephants. It's an integrated one. It's not only logic, it's not only mathematics, but logic and also language. 1 rabbit saw 9 elephants while going to the river. Every elephant saw 3 monkeys going to the river. Each monkey had 1 tortoise on each hand. How many animals were going to the river? Now, 1 rabbit saw 9 elephants while going to the river. Was the rabbit going to the river or were the elephants going to the river? What's the meaning? 1 rabbit saw 9 elephants while going to the river. We focus our attention on while going to the river. Who was going to the river, the rabbit or the elephants? 1 rabbit saw 9 elephants while going to the river. Obviously, it was the rabbit that was going to the river. And on his way, he saw 9 elephants. The elephants were not going to the river. And when you get this one correct or right, then it's easy for you to follow the rest of the thing. Every elephant saw 3 monkeys going to the river. There were 9 elephants, and every elephant saw 3 monkeys going to the river. Does it mean 9 into 3? 9 into 3? Did every elephant saw 3 different monkeys or same monkeys? So your answer will depend on how you calculate and all that. And your answer will depend on whether you understand while going to, right? Like number one is 1 plus 3, 1 rabbit and 3 monkeys, right? Plus 6, 10. The rabbit was going, the elephants were not going because 1 rabbit saw 9 elephants while going to the river. If the elephants were going, then the construction would be 1 rabbit saw 9 elephants while they were going to the river, right? While they were going, the elephants were going, but it's not like this in the story. So this can be administered in the classroom as one supplementary activity or task. So sometimes we can give some more interesting activities like I gave once in my innovations in English language teaching class in Hyderabad. So similarity between dissimilar things. You know, John Donne, the metaphysical poet, compares the lovers, the two lovers, the boy and the girl, with the 2 legs of the compass, the 2 legs of the divider. The fixed leg of the compass is the girl, and the rotating foot of the compass is the boy. You see, only a poet can see similarity between dissimilar things, right? The 2 lovers are like the 2 legs of the compass. T.S. Eliot compares the evening with a patient etherized on an operation table. So this comparison of the evening with the patient is quite striking. Wordsworth compares himself with the lonely cloud. And Yeats, in his Second Coming, compares man and God with falcon and falconer, because he says, turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Right? The falcon here means man, and falconer here means God. Right? Man has become so materialistic that he cannot hear the call given to him by his supreme father, his creator, God. Right? So there is a comparison between man and falcon and God and falconer. Right? We can give a similar activity like this. Once I gave this activity in one of my classes. What is the main similarity between child, clear water, mirror, and literature? There are 4 items: child, clear water, mirror, and literature. And my students came up with brilliant answers. Brilliant answers. I'll read out only the essence of what they gave. The child is the father of the man. A child reflects innocence and divinity. Water reflects our image when we stand in it. Clear water, of course. Literature reflects social, economic, religious, political, intellectual milieu of its time. Literature is a slice of life. It holds a mirror to life. A mirror reflects our images. So the common quality, the common feature of water, child, river, and mirror is the ability to reflect. And one of my students said, mercy, pity, peace, and love is God. Mercy, pity, peace, and love is man. So man is a reflection of God. That is what he meant. So like this, we can give lots of activities. Finally, I'd like to say that supplementary materials can be used for theoretical purposes. All the examples that I cited during my 1-hour talk, all right, are examples of using supplementary materials for practical purposes, teaching purposes, not training purposes. But supplementary materials can be used for theoretical purposes. For example, I don't think you are familiar with the stories that I'm going to name. One is the story called The Son-in-Law. The other one is a story called The Lost Child. And the third one is a story called Homecoming by Rabindranath Tagore. Now, these stories, whatever is said in these stories can be applied to listening, speaking, reading skills, or affective domain and cognitive domain and all that. So we can give them theoretical inputs from theoretical books. but we can use short stories and poems and folk tales and anecdotes and so on and so forth to explain the points that are relevant, that are important from theoretical point of view. That's all I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much. I'm extremely grateful to all my colleagues from Dhofar University, Dr. Khalid and Dr. Vijay Singh Thakur and other colleagues. I'm sorry, I'm very poor at remembering names. I'm growing old now. So you please forgive me for forgetting your names. Thank you so much. And it's over to you, my friend.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Patil, for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And with a lot of different concepts, starting from the teachers and tormentors, supplementary materials, how do we inject interest into the audience, interpersonal intelligence, and textbook that includes poem like daffodils and riddles and concepts like charity, show charity. So it was interesting and mix of a lot of different concepts.
Thank you. Incidentally, all these bits and pieces taken from my own articles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these examples that I cited are from my own articles, different articles. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I hope they are all of interest to the listener. So I would like to invite questions from everyone. If you have any question, you can ask in the chat box. Then I will direct to Dr. Zeren Patil.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm waiting for the questions in the chat box.
Yes. No questions.
Yes. Any question anyone have?
That only does it mean that I couldn't succeed in conveying the message that I wanted to?
No, I think people understand what you. There are two reasons people don't ask questions. Either they understand everything, or they don't understand a thing. So I assume that everyone understood everything. So it looks like.
Oh, if they don't have any questions, they can supplement. We just talked about supplementary materials. You can have supplementary comments.
Yes. So while I'm waiting for the question on the chat box, I have a question, Dr. Patil.
Please.
My background is chemical engineering and teach engineering students. So wonderful. This supplementary information is of great interest when we are trying to inject concepts that are very abstract. And these visual experiences help students a lot. So can you please tell us, as an engineering background teachers, what kind of supplementary information should we include in our materials so that our students will retain the topics that we are teaching them?
Right. I said that supplementary materials can be used for practical purposes, for teaching purposes. Secondly, we can use supplementary materials to explain theoretical concepts. Thirdly, we can use supplementary materials to throw a different light on a particular phenomenon. For example, let's take daffodils, right? Now you asked me to give an example from engineering. I'm going to give you an example from science in general, like life science, or like botany or zoology, for example. Now, how would a zoologist describe a daffodil flower? A zoologist will describe a daffodil flower in a very dry as dust manner, like petals, the sepals, the color, the stem, and all that. But let's look at the poem Daffodils by William Wordsworth. He doesn't actually talk about daffodils as such. The daffodil is just a catalyst. And this catalyst arouses reactions, responses to the beautiful scene, right? So the focus is completely different. Here in the poem, the daffodil flower acts as just a catalyst. But there in the botanical description, the focus is only on the physical description of the daffodil flower. Now, what happens is engineering students all the time read and study and answer questions on their subjects, their content subjects. It's a good idea to use some literature. The literature can be short story or one-act play or poem to show a different angle to the phenomenon, like daffodils, for example, botanical description, poetic description, and what exactly the difference between the two descriptions. In botanical description, the focus is on physical description of the flowers. In the poem, the focus is on what kind of feelings these flowers arouse in the mind of the poet, the onlooker, the spectator. Now, doing the same thing all the time, doing only engineering all the time makes us dull. So we need to do something different, right? And that's also, in my opinion, a kind of supplementation. They get another worldview, another perspective on the phenomenon. Thank you. I hope I answer your question somehow.
Yes, I understand. Your point is we should supplement, like when we are discussing equations, we should give an example from the real world
Right.
problems where they can relate each other. Right.
Right. That's true.
So yes, thank you very much. This is my question. In case anybody miss asking question, they can ask again.
Or offering comments. They can offer comments.
Yes. Now we have a question from Dr. Vijay Thakur. Can good supplementary materials ensure better learning motivation and enhance participation?
Right. Now, there are quite a few factors. Incidentally, let me add one thing here. I attended a couple of sessions delivered for Indian teachers here online. He delivered the sessions online during the pandemic period, and the pandemic is unfortunately not over yet. We have a second wave in India, which is terrible. So I listened to him, and I really enjoyed listening to his session, attending his session on using Abraham Lincoln's letter as a supplementary material to do a whole gamut of things. Yes, there are quite a few factors here. The teacher's personality plays an important role. The materials need to be relevant, meaningful, interesting, and simple. Only then can they be effective and effectively and efficiently used. When we design supplementary materials, we need to keep in mind that interest factor is probably the most important factor. Relevance factor is equally important. Interest, relevance, motivation, simplicity, utility, all these factors need to be kept in mind while designing supplementary activities or tasks. Thank you. Thank you, Vijay Singh.
Yes, any other question?
We still have time.
Yes, we have 10 minutes to go.
10 minutes to go, right. They can share their experiences, actually. I'm sure they have used some sort of supplementary teaching material, learning material in some class, at some point in time. So they can share. They can share what they have, what supplementary materials they have used in their classrooms. Please make me richer. It's an interaction, Whenever I do a session, I learn a lot of things from the participants, from the compere, and from other colleagues. So please give me something and make me a little rich, pedagogically rich.
Okay, while we're waiting for the questions to be typed, Dr. Patel, you told us that teachers usually focus on two things, text and tests.
Yes,
Right.
the test is the engine.
So,
You know,
and you said that
invariably,
yes,
they always,
teachers should not be
yeah, please continue.
these tormentors.
They should be mentors.
They should be mentors, right?
Right.
So how can we be more like mentors than be tormentors?
Right. Now, you see, there is a story called The Lost Child. A little boy goes to a fair with his parents and he gets lost. Now, one gentleman picks him up and asks him whether he would like to have sweets, would like to listen to juggler's music, would like to have a ride on the merry-go-round, would like to get a garland of flowers, and so on and so forth. Now, in my opinion, these things, the sweets, the gentleman who has picked up this boy, crying boy, weeping boy, offers him sweets, garland of flowers, ride on the merry-go-round, balloons, colorful balloons, and juggler's music. But the boy, every time the boy is offered something, every time the boy is offered either balloons or sweets or juggler's music or a ride on the merry-go-round or a garland of flowers, the boy says only one thing: I want my mother, I want my father, I want my mother, I want my father. Now, what does this mean in the context of teaching? It means you may or may not satisfy the different types of intelligence that learners bring to the classroom. You may or may not satisfy their visual, auditory, kinesthetic learning styles, right? That is not so important. It is important, but what is more important than satisfying different types of intelligences and satisfying different types of learning styles is loving your, caring for your children, learners, and loving them and being affectionate with them, right? So affective domain is more powerful than cognitive domain, right?
Yes.
Have I given you the answer?
Yes, I understand your answer.
Right.
And we have a comment from Dr. Vijay also that
Right.
jokes and anecdotes can also be successfully used for learning,
Yeah.
teaching, and critical
Yeah.
thinking to keep the interest alive in the audience.
Exactly.
So they shouldn't be zoning out of the class.
Exactly. Like, for example, spoonerism can sometimes be used. Like, the teacher says to the learner, you have wasted 2 terms, 2, TWO, right? You have wasted 2 terms, wasted, WASTED, and terms. Instead of saying you have wasted 2 terms, the teacher says you have tasted 2 worms. This is an example of spoonerism, and this spoonerism can be used to teach language at some level. For example, we talk about minimal pairs, we talk about replacing a particular sound. So waste and taste, they're sort of rhyming words. What happens in this case is that the sound were is replaced by the sound t, and wasted is made tasted, and terms becomes worms, right? So this is an example of spoonerism. This can also be used to teach phonology, minimal pairs, contrastive distribution of sounds, and so on. Yes, that's true. What Professor Vijay Singh Thakur has said is right. Anecdotes can be used, folk tales can be used. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. So I suppose there is no question now. So I would like to extend thanks to Dr. Patil and thanks from the CTL Center for Teaching and Learning to invite you so that you can share your experience from you gathered in 47 years. And I hope these experiences will help us to prepare better supplementary materials that will help us teach better, become better teachers.
Thank you, and hope to see you, God willing, hope to see you. We are not sure because the pandemic is not yet over, but God willing, let's hope we'll meet in October on the premises of Dover University. So let me express my gratitude to all the authorities of Dover University in Salalah. And let me also express my special thanks to my friends and colleagues, Dr. Khalid and Dr. Vijay Singh Thakur, and you and other colleagues. Thank you so much for this great opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Patel. Okay, take care. God bless you.
Yeah, take care. God bless. Thank you.